Hi, everyone. Good morning. We have another session in room number 2010-2020, which is on network for advancing women's entrepreneurship in India. So that session is taking place in 2010 and 2020 on the 20th floor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back, everyone, to another day of action-packed sessions at the 14th Livelihoods India Summit. It is my absolute honor and privilege to introduce the first panel for the day, which is a plenary session, The New Frontier, Building Inclusive Livelihoods for the Urban Poor. Without much ado, I warmly welcome the moderator for the session, Mr. Ajit Ranjan, Program Coordinator, India, BRAC, to take his place on the stage. Without much ado, I warmly welcome the moderator of the session, Mr. Ajit Ranjan, Program Coordinator, India, BRAC, to take his place on the stage. I would now like to invite on stage the panelists for the session. I welcome on stage Ms. Shweta S. Banerjee, Country Lead, India, BRAC International. I warmly welcome Mr. Raman Vadava, Director de NRLM, Ministry of Rural Development, India, Government of India. I next invite Mr. Samik Sundar Das, Senior Rural Development Specialist, the World Bank. And next I welcome Ms. Sakshi Agarwal, Senior Coordinator, Seva. Thank you so much. I now hand over the session to Mr. Ajit Ranjan to take it forward.
So, a very good morning to everyone. On behalf of Access Development and BRAC International, I welcome each one of you on day 2 and to this session of building inclusive livelihood for the urban poor. So before going to the session, let's have some facts and figure with us. So in India, there are around 8,000 towns and cities, and there are 3 types of slums, which is notified, recognized, and identified. So notified, there are 37,000. The second one is around 30,000 and identified is 40,000, where they have declared that they are so crowded that they declare this is the most, say, poor and urban poor resides there. We have some facts from the MPI also that the declining trend which has been shown in rural is better than the urban. And we have some evidence from the World Bank also that the urbanization also affects the poverty of rural. So that's all the data we have. But still, from the last 2 decades where the government started NULM, there's a Pradhan Mantri Yojanas and Sri Yojana is there. So still the urban poor has not been targeted enough and handled enough to cater this type of, to access these livelihoods or social security. So let's start the plenary session with all the panelists who are from the DISIF team, they are from the DNRLM, from the World Bank, BRAC International, and then the Seva people who are more of. So let's start the panel straight away and use this time. Thank you. So the broader objective of this panel is who are these urban poor? So if we can focus on more on who are these, and is there any livelihood approach which can be adopted from the rural areas for these urban areas? So who are these urban poor? Shamikda?
I like when you say Samikda always. Thanks, Ajit. And good morning, everyone. To a very cold morning in Delhi, as always, at this time of the year. And happy to be in this panel again after being there yesterday with various old friends. I think the definition of urban poor is a very critical aspect of working with urban poor and urban livelihoods. I think that definition is yet to be very clearly defined in any policy or any kind of programs that we have seen, because somehow the inclusion aspect of an urban poor into development programs or any kind of government programs have not been very clearly articulated in any kind of programs or policies of government or of various organizations. Many civil society organizations have been targeting Like Seva is working with informal workers in Ahmedabad. They started with and they have taken it over. But I think what we have to look at is the various aspects of urban poor in terms of migrants, in terms of settlements in various locations where there is lack of services and also access to various public services like education, health, and all. So I think we need to not just define the urban poor from the perspective of income, but look at other aspects of where they are. uh, the next thing I would like to also understand as we move along this definition of urban poor is how we really target them. Actually, I think there is no proper methodology already there to target urban poor in any interventions, although we have identification criteria for providing subsidized government programs, but there is no identification process and a methodology to target them. I think we have to work on that first, but which is much more clearer in a rural programs. If you look at any rural programs, it's much more defined than in urban interventions. So I'll stop here, and
So I know the BRAC is working in Bihar. So is there any targeting approach or model which we have adopted in Bihar?
Okay. Thanks, Ajit. Very nice to be here with all of you. Good morning. I think, like what Samik was saying, that the urban population is much more mobile. And the kinds of migration that happen in urban areas are sort of different and layered. So there are some that are using, for example, Patna as a way stop to Delhi. There are some that are coming there, as a seasonal sort of lookout for work. And there are some who are sort of lodged there, in a homeless state, in a semi-permanent kind of temporal frame. So there are various ways in which people are going through urban areas, and that makes programming design a bit more difficult because you have to retain the attention of a very mobile population. So how do you do that? In rural areas, especially in Bihar, for example, the migration happens where the men migrate, but the household and the women remain. But often in urban areas, it's the whole household that migrates and moves around in different parts. So I think one of the things that we're looking at in Patna and Gaya, for example, in our project, is to segment the target population in various ways. So there's a separate pilot for homeless people, and tracking them is going to require much more intense, MIS and other interventions. And then we're looking at slums that are both notified and denotified. The majority of the poor people live in actually denotified slums. We're looking at working with partners like Hak Darshak, for example, who have developed, they look at, making sure that targeted populations have various forms of ID that are required, and those IDs have to be then saved within the programmatic MIS systems, etc. So, I think these are sort of starting points, but it's a very complex and challenging proposition.
So let's hear from the Seva Sakshi.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Speaking from Seva's context, we don't have an approach or we don't need one because Seva, Self-Employed Women's Association, we work with informal women workers. And when we say informal women workers, they work in trades like waste picking, domestic, home-based work, construction. So these women, they don't, when we talk about earning, they don't even earn the minimum wage. So, and then living in a urban city like Delhi, Ahmedabad, it's very difficult to survive. And then also, as mentioned before, they don't have access to education, livelihood, other health, so forth. So it's quite difficult. But Seva, we do have our own development models, cooperatives to be specific, that we work with. And through that unit, we try and provide income security to our members. Oh, yeah. Thank you.
So, Raman sir, we have the poorest of poor model in day and RLM. And now we are saying that we should go in the peri-urban or semi-urban areas with this identification issue. So is there any approach which you are thinking that how to go in the urban or semi-urban areas?
Good morning. I think that now the way NRLM or institutions in the rural areas are functioning, what Samik also mentioned, that it's in a much more structured manner, that there is a process which earlier was called BPL, then went into ACCC, and thereafter we adopted the approach what is called well-being ranking or something such processes where community was involved in identification. But in the case of urban areas, basically it is thought that it's a migration. A. Second thing which we must understand, it's also a market there. So it's not only migration, it has a reason. There is a market of that kind of labor force, maybe a bad term. But point is that it's an important thing that there is a market for them, and there is also to some extent the motivation or the zeal among them that they want to do something better. So it's important that we should understand the thought process which is going on in the poor people, that they also need some kind of support. And in urban, it has always been thought that you have all kind of medical facilities, you have got good water, you have got good education, but the reach is not being enabled to them alone. If I have to take a pragmatic or a practical example, in a school there is a process called EWS. Okay, there's the admission has to be taken care of. But if a child is suffering from some disease and some kind of concession is to be given in exam, there is a need of some certification. You go to any good hospital, they'll say it's a 2-year waiting. So just imagine that how such services we need to reach out to the poor people. So there is a need to take the knowledge from the rural areas or what has been done in the rural, a structured approach. A. Second is identification involving community and understand their aspirations. Means don't think as a migrant. Just if we have a positive approach with respect to the market, which is for us also living in the urban areas, and B, it's motivation also. If need be, we can stop it there, but it's not possible because sometimes, most of the time, it's positive too. So let's have that kind of good thing which can be adopted here. Second is the institution building and other things which come up later, but aspirations are different altogether. It cannot be an individualistic thought alone. And those institutions which are adopted in the rural areas, they cannot be pasted here. Means a bigger SHG or CLF or whatever terms we use in rural areas, no, they cannot work. That is my, but nevertheless, it's an old concept which me and Samik started with, that CIG kind of 5 people or so, means common interest group. Those kind of institutions or a model better than that, a smaller than that, can help. Means a new system can be placed in the urban areas, taking the knowledge which has well established processes therein. And it's always there. Poverty anywhere is a threat to prosperity everywhere. So one should keep that in mind. That is with me.
Thank you, everyone. So there's no fixed framework in terms of defining urban poor, but there can be a segment, there can be some section, there some can be criteria can be fixed related to, say, targeting in terms of migration we can keep, in terms of basic services we can keep. So in rural there is a community participation is there to define the rural poor. But in urban, that there should be a criteria that what should go into the slums. The migration should be one criteria basis everything. So let's go forward. Let's get deeper into the discussion. And Raman sir, is that under, because you have worked in MPS RLM and you are here in the day in NRM part also, but is there any section of livelihood which can be adopted under the urban scenario of urban poor? This can be easily replicated, or there should be some tailored approach, but it can be adopted by the urban segment. Yeah.
A big question of a shift. Anyway, thank you so much for that larger building a larger perspective. When we look at, I would say, NRLM, which has been built on the institutions of the poor, it was thought the first line of that framework says they have an innate capability to come out of the poverty. So it's for the poor, it's not for the rural or for the urban people. So first thing is that how we can have that kind of capacity building or institutions framed into the system of urban areas. I said earlier that it cannot be a cut copy paste from the larger institutions, but a smaller or a tailor-made institutions like common interest groups, or there can be smaller institutions. Similarly, second thing which comes is that urban poor has better access to better approach to the banks and the financial systems. Here in the rural areas, we struggled a lot to go in for the BC Sakhi model, that we are reaching out banking to the poor. But here in the urban areas, because a lot of branches are there, they have access. But point is, the facilitation gaps are missing. The things which came on later in the rural area, that is within NRLM. So we said that one is BC Sakhi will come with another model of banking Sakhi. So banking Sakhi is more important in urban areas. One who can be a good facilitator, not essentially a woman, can be a man, because it's overall thing we have to look into. So that can be of great help, so that the people understand that these are the facilities. Another thing is, we need to understand the role of community mobilizers or the community resource persons. In NRLM, they are actually the extended hands. Now they have specialized into many activities. It's not they are going for mobilization or bookkeeping part. Leave apart those basic things which were required. They are into the subsector approach, or some of them are into enterprise development. Some are there in some states. In Jharkhand, they are calling it, will have a honey didi, honey beekeeping didi kind of terms are also being used. Even legal advisor or samta sakis, many terms have come up, means they have specialized it into. So can we have such kind of community people who can help therein? Because otherwise the government or the municipalities, they will never have that kind of structure with them. I haven't seen, I'm not aware of, even in NULM also it was tried on when I was working with them in the state of Madhya Pradesh. So point is, they need a big push with respect to that kind of additional support. Third thing which NRLM or the rural areas can give to the urban people is the kind of production or the quality produce. In the morning also, while looking at the movie which was displayed, the Didi was telling that hum log suit kaate hain and our cloth is of such a good quality. The quality is there, but how to sell it? That conduit can be the urban area, because markets actually lie in the urban. It's a known fact. But the pricing that will come from the urban areas. So if that gap is filled up, means the urban poor can and the rural poor can join hands. Means that is some niche area, but it will be of great help to understand those nitty gritties and go into the processes. Next important thing which comes to us is that over a period of time, large number of entrepreneurship development enterprise programs have come in. They need lot of hand holding and facilitation support. I would say the kind of organizations which are supporting MSME over here or the urban enterprising, that skill is still a huge gap in the rural areas. So it's not only what the rural person takes, the urban person takes from the rural area. It's other way around also. So that integration is also required so that they can play, means NGO or any other organization, be a government or any other agency, which can help them improvise their products. That will also be one important part which I feel like. And last but not least, the part is that the convergence initiatives, means the role of government or the partnerships which are required, that has been done much more diligently in the rural areas, be it Ministry of Agriculture functioning hand in hand with the Ministry of Rural Development or Department of Animal Husbandry supporting, even the urban institutions from Ministry of Commerce, MOFP, they are supporting a lot. How can they these institutions help the means that kind of things can also help a lot, so that there is actually a clear cut understanding with respect to what the poor people in urban area needs. And of course those CRPs, I'll again say, the 2 year waiting process, means it's a true fact because my other half is part of that institution. So when we look into it, 2 years waiting, had it been we have got that kind of resource persons in places, especially in Delhi or anywhere, that time can reduce. I cannot say that it's a magic wand and in a period of just said you can just reduce 2 years to say zero. No, but at least it can come to 3 months, 6 months. Some proper time will be there, and that kind of facilitation might come in. So I think there can be a lot of learnings from the entire process, and this will certainly help urban people to urban poor, that they can also work on it. And one difference which actually comes in the point of investment, in rural areas a smaller investment can help a lot, because there is some kind of better bonding. Here we need larger investments. In urban areas one has to be very careful and diligent with respect to the kind of investments they have to make for their activities, because that kind of bonding which is there in rural areas, if you ask the CLF leader, okay, Didi Aja Paja, we have a program there in Delhi, so they will come, but Adidi means urban poor, which will say, I don't have that much of time, I got 3 houses further, I cannot come. So but if you say that this will help you and you need to have more investments, wo hame bhi as a government or as the partners within the institutions need to understand. That is, thank you.
For saying about the capacity, capability, skills, enterprise, and CRP development. So going to Shamikda. So you have experience. I know you from Odisha, Tamil Nadu, working with the state government and designing of NRLM, NRETPFD. So as from the policy perspective, if you want to say provide input to the urban UDHD, then in that case, what will be the policy measure which you will advocate in terms of livelihood to that department?
I think before I jump into any specific policy aspects, first of all, let me put this framework that poor wherever they are situated, it's because of exclusion, because of access issues, because of capability issues, because of opportunity issues, because of being not part of agency or something, right? So let's not be too categorical in calling poor as in rural or in urban. I think let's not do that, but look at the factors of why a poor is poor and where they're situated specially. If we take that approach, I think we'll be much easier in defining, particularly from a targeting perspective. So that's the first point I want to make. The second is that when I started working, I remember I used to write India is 85% rural. But today I'm writing a paper, I say India is 65% rural. So there is definitely either urbanization is reaching rural areas, right? And this transition is a very important aspects of how we understand the economy first, because that's where the issue is. And that understanding of this transition from rural to urban, or rural or urban reaching rural areas, but the people remain the same in either side of this divide, right, or the transition. So how do we really understand this transition and be able to develop policies and intervention and strategies to work on the livelihood part, because livelihood is something which is very defined as a community here from the perspective of agriculture, right, from the perspective of the allied sector. But if the moment you talk about rural livelihoods, it talks about gig economy, care economy, services, skills to that. So it takes a totally different cut of how we work. So just thinking about uh, urban livelihoods from the rural livelihood perspective will be little bit of a injustice to urban livelihood is what I'll say. So we need to be very careful in how we look at this, because the whole transition is so fast. Because looking at some data, we are doing some analysis for Tamil Nadu. We looked at Tamil Nadu will be 75 to 80% urban by 2035. Can you imagine that a state going to 80% urbanization? I'm not talking about other states will follow. And that is a phenomena which is happening, which will demand different services, which will demand different kind of financial product, will demand different kind of skill sets. What do you do with it? So what are the policy question then comes up in what kind of transition in policies we have to make to ensure that we are able to manage this kind of transition, right? So I think this is the kind of thinking we need to bring in our discourses as we work, particularly people who are working in a rural setup and have been hit by urbanization in the peri-urban blocks which are urbanizing. What are the issues that are coming up has to be thrown out. I would suggest that kind of separate sessions should be organized in this transition of economy from rural urban rural. The rural mission got it ended, right? But I think it had a lot of meaning in rural. That somewhere we have to go back to the discussions, bring that up again into the discourse of that. Yes, rural is an area on which we have to work on basically. So policies, I think, again, if you look at it from the perspective of rural policies, urban policies, then I don't think we will be taking. We have to look at poor people at the center of it, then look at the special aspects of it, and then see which policies will come where. I think I'll stop.
Rural mission doesn't have the definition of rural extension to urban or urban extension to rural. That's the definition they have to kept in mind, because the entire rural mission objective is something different. It was infrastructure development, then the smart city concept, everything was there. So thank you for that. So BRAC has an experience working in Bihar, and we have, so is inclusive livelihood is the only approach to cater the needs of urban poor, or what strategy we have taken in Bihar to cater the requirement of urban poor, basically?
Okay, so I think we've already covered the macro picture on the urban transition and what sort of lies ahead of us. So I think one thing that is particularly challenging in the urban areas is, and I mentioned it before, is retaining the attention span of the participant. If you look at the ultra poor program in Bangladesh, BRAC offers a menu of about 30 livelihood options to the participant. In SJY Rural, it's mostly focused on enterprises. So you offer them an option of 5 or 6 different types of shops and enterprises, right? But in urban, where Jivika is now working and BRAC is supporting Jivika, we're looking at a tripartite pathway. So there's a pathway to enterprises, pathway to skills and vocation, and then a pathway to jobs and utilities. And I think a partnership with the larger government ecosystem on creating more utility and service-based jobs in urban areas is really untapped. So you have railway stations, hospitals, a lot of government infrastructure that needs services. So that's one. But I think, and Ramesh in our team is leading that effort. But there is a huge need to kind of promote and think through diversification of options that you can hopefully retain the attention span of the participants. Otherwise, they will just leave the program and go and look for other opportunities within the same area. So I would stop there.
Different approach completely. So while going through Seva profile, you're saying that Seva is working in some of the urban. You're the only agency in the panel who is working in urban area, and with so what approach you take to mobilize the community and what livelihood option you give it to them?
Okay, so we currently, Seva is a central trade union, and it is the only central trade union of women workers, and we are in 18 states as of now, and 2.9 million women workers are members of Seva. Just to give a brief. And so when we talk about Seva's approach or strategy, we have a struggle and development strategy, we call. And it's about taking through two movements, that is the trade union movement and the cooperative movement. So when we talk about a trade union, we specifically talking about organizing. When we say organizing for collective bargaining, collective strength, and collective greater productivity. So these are the things when we talk about organizing. And it is also benefits when we have to ask the government or lobby for the acts for the informal workers. For example, home-based workers is something that we are working, or for domestic workers. The second point being, that's how we organize and mobilize. And then we have organizers from the community and trades itself. So it's like a very bottom-up approach. So the needs of the community or the trade comes from the workers itself. The second being a cooperative model. In the cooperative model, first thing being we upgrade the skills. And then through these upgraded skills, a source of employment or work. And then these are converted into a unit like a registered cooperative. To share some example of a cooperative model, we have, Seva has 100 plus cooperatives. I'll just share two of them. One is called Rachayata. It means to make. That's an all-women construction workers cooperative based out of Ahmedabad. And we have women who go takes contract, and that is also a challenge. No, it's like a very like it's a struggle that is not ends. Like we have a cooperative, so we expect we'll get work. It's not like that. I remember when we go and ask for work, the cooperative, and then it was like, you will not be able to do the work because they have seen only men performing the work. And then it goes, we'll do it for free, you see some portion of it. And then if you like the work, you give us the contract. And ultimately, we did get the contract. So that is one example of how we associate livelihood. And the other being Gitanjali. It's a cooperative of waste recyclers. So these former waste recyclers used to pick waste from the roads. They now make stationery. So like this book I'm carrying, this is made out of waste paper, no, recycled paper. And this is not just like we use in Seva, but at other places also, like Accenture, there is Goldman Sachs and so forth. So this is something that we have been working as Seva. Has been our approach. And do I get like another 5 minutes? So like 2 minutes is to share a story. So there's, in Gitanjali also we have a master trainer called Paliben. You might Google also, you'll find her stories across. So when she talks about the change in her life, when we say no, that how the change has been brought, she used to pick waste from the streets. So how she says it's like 5 a.m. in the morning, I used to go and pick waste from the streets, and often there'll be a dog bite, or my hand will be cut through the glass, and it'll be a lucky day if I get a bag full of waste paper. And I know that I'll take back home something. like it's a sunny day. But then there are days when it's pouring, and she's like, I cannot move out of the house to collect the waste. And also the waste that has been stored at my place, that also gets destroyed because of the rains. So when she got organized and she became part of Seva, she got trained to make waste through these recycled products and also the stationery. And now the unit we call Gitanjali Cooperative, she runs that. She's the master trainer, and she takes training, skills training from this NID, National Institute of Design, to be like in trend with what is happening in the stationery. And then she trains people further who are newly employed in the cooperative. And she proudly says, when you meet her, she proudly says, before I used to struggle to earn 5,000, 6,000 rupees in a month. Now she has an income of 23,000, 24,000 in a month. She owns a house. Both her children are educated. So this is like one of the stories that I'm sharing, but we have hundreds of them through the model that Seva's approach. So yeah, thank you.
So it's all about organizing community and working with them. Thank you so much. So you talk about the skill development. So Raman sir, DNRLM has a dedicated skill mission also. So is there any skill development or training, say policy or scheme that can also be run at the, see in the urban context?
Under Day in RLM, DDU-GKY is one such mission which is working for skill development of the rural poor, and this it is doing all with the support of the private partners. Most of them are private partners, and they are good organizations, and there is a grading system, the star organizations or the champion partners kind of things have been made. So the first part is that how these institutions have been selected. One means the state has been given that kind of delegation that they selected, and the state are called those AAP states. One. And once these institutions are hired, they are requested to select the people or the youth from the rural areas and train them in specified places. Means they have to develop those training centers in various parts of the cities or in the district headquarters where these youth can be trained. And they are actually, because companies or the corporates are more urban than rural, so they are actually catering the urban masses. One such example is, say, Apollo. They are training them into the field of, say, the medical field. It's not essentially that medical knowledge, but what is required for those purposes. Second is, there is training with respect to the apparel field. So apparel, they are teaching them designing, they are teaching them cutting, one part. In addition to such kind of skills, some soft skills or the managerial skills are also imparted under day NRLM, this DDU-GKY in the NRLM component. So these young people whom I said earlier, that the people in rural areas have some aspirations, they have motivation, they need some kind of motivation, and that zeal enables them to reach out to different places. There are some youth who have actually become, the girls have become air hostess also in the prominent airlines. So just the program which was started to train them as a plumber, that too for the urban areas, because you at that time, say a decade ago, the mission of Nal Jal mission was not there, and there were not much taps there. Obviously it was going to cater the urban areas. So the program is started with plumbing, some kind of mason activities. It has reached to a level where these youth are now flying in the flying skies. So that is a kind of training or motivation which has come up. But time has come that a big jump or a push is required now. You cannot allow them only to go in for the plumber, mason kind of thing. Even if apparel is there, it has to be designing. It has to be to the market oriented thing, which the mission is working on. Another skill mission is related to that how you cater with respect to the growing needs, say the mobile phones. Mobile repair has also become one important part, or how do you reduce that digital gap? So that kind of skill imparting is also carried on through this mission. Activity is not important, what I want to stress over here. Point is that those kind of skill training or those kind of deepening of the processes of skills has actually enabled the child in the rural area to understand that there is a need in urban area and there is an income behind that. The example which we have of Tamil Nadu is because the ecosystem of industrialization is there. But if you ask me, go to Northeast, there is nothing. It is very difficult. Go to Arunachal Pradesh. Even today, you'll find truckloads of oranges are thrown into the digs. So it's the point means we need to create that kind of ecosystem. And this is how DDU-GKY kind of programs are helping. And the Skill India mission has also taken that initiative within the country. We also see that within these skills, we need to go into for some kind of understanding related to processing. It's not that alone a program of investment through MAFI, which gives a very good amount of money. It's not. But that kind of skill is also required. Money alone will not suffice the purpose. So it has to go hand in hand with the skills also. So that kind of training capacity building is required. And important within this entire scenario or the ecosystem of the skills is the role played by the private sector. Means the way institutions, be it Apollo or Technoserve or L&T, name any, means who are associated with this type of program, the kind of skilling they have imparted, and it is market oriented. Means it has to be an actual, it's actually a public private partnership which is giving results. It has taken some time, but now results are coming in. So that is important, that the program of the skills is such duly deepened that now it is also catering the needs of some peri-urban areas, or even in some in the rural areas also. Because that mobile repairing kind of thing, we can see in one study I was looking at. They said in some of the yesterday only someone was telling in one of village, some 90% of the students who have means in their home they have got 90% have been using these smartphones. So it's important that that kind of skill is not restricted to few people. It is encouraged more and more, and one skill is not sufficient. In that also there has to have to be some soft skills, some kind of managerial skills. It's not essential that if a catering is taught to them, they'll also need to speak some good words also. That is important. Otherwise they'll not get people, or they'll not get jobs in places where we are sitting. You'll always, it is said, say I come from Madhya Pradesh, it is always said that you'll find some person in a hotel from Riva. It's always said that in any city you'll go, you'll find someone from Riva in some of the good hotels over there. But important is not that is their thought, means it's coming through the family or the thought process, but how it can be linked further through the specific trainings, that is important. Thank you.
Thank you, Raman sir. So, Samik, this question is for you. We talk about the community, we talk about the skillings. With your experience working in the rural sector, how important is this for the urban poor?
See, I think we need to look at livelihood definitely, because if you look at urban livelihoods, is about labor at the end of the day. How this labor functions in the urban economy is very important to look at it. So they would be in various sectors. Like today, if you look at half a billion laborers will be in gig economy in a way. So then it demands a different kind of skilling. It demands a different kind of way of dealing with it. So the way I'm looking at it is that if you take what are the opportunities we see in urban areas in terms of enhancing income of people who are working as labor at informally, formally, and that. One is we need to look at there's a huge opportunity in solid waste management. So how do we look at opportunities of livelihoods in solid waste management? Second is this whole concept of solid waste management in terms of managing the waste. The other part is about waste to wealth again. That's another aspect that we have to look at. How do we go into waste to wealth kind of approach and bring that? Second is reusing and upscaling, because a lot of waste and it all relates to climate and all that also at the end of the day. Then one of the areas which we have done some work, there is a regional study which has been done on the urban food system. I think we have not looked at urban food system from a specific perspective of how to bring in urban food systems as an approach in urban livelihoods also. So in terms of nutrition within urban food system, then about distribution of food in urban areas, how it can be linked to livelihood opportunities, about input supplies in some people started doing urban vegetable growing, hydroponics and all. Those are other opportunities we see there. Then it's about food waste. Food waste is a big area in which in urban areas we can look at how do we create opportunities in food waste. Now, processing, of course, food retail. We know food retail is a big area, both thelawalas to small restaurants to a lot of things are there. So how do you get into that? And on top of that, if you think, then you have to think from the protection side, in terms of labor protection, their physical protection, their municipal rights, all that things are there. Then you have health and insurance about these people who are engaged as labor force in the urban economy. You have upskilling and skilling of these people to go to the next level. And lastly, you need to talk about education of the kids, the next generation of people who are in urban areas. So there are various pathways and various kind of areas on which you have to think about. It's not just about what we have done in the agriculture sector, mostly rural urban agriculture focused. So the moment you turn it to urban, it will have very different way of looking at things. I think we have to discuss more. We have to have a discussion on these aspects and be in this transition and try to look at the transformation that will come out of this process. I'll stop here.
Engage in designing of Jivika, the first mission which has come, in designing of rural Jivika. Then you are part of urban mission also. So what approach you will take for the urban? So Shamik has shared his experience, Raman sir has shared. So what approach you will take in Bihar or at the national level?
Okay, so I think the skill development missions that has already been talked about. I mean, they are overwhelmed with catering to 17-year-olds to 24-year-olds. Who are class 10 pass, class 12 pass, and have to be re-skilled into software or AI or whatever the new buzz industry is, right? But if you look at the urban poor, the ultra poor, who we want to target, who are women, who may not have class 10 qualifications, who have children, and how do we then create a ecosystem in which she is able to do that skilling for 6 to 7 hours, and what then that pathway leads for her? So first of all, she needs some childcare support that can help her during those hours, right? Because in urban areas, families are nuclear, they don't have joint family support. Often the male member is out, as a daily wage earner. Then she needs safe transportation if the skilling center is far. She needs safe lighting in urban areas. There are lots of issues around, that particular segment that we want to work with and make productive. So I think the Jivika has that approach and has the sort of sensitivity that you need to design for this particular segment. There's a lot of untapped potential. Samik mentioned the care economy. So looking at creating a cadre of childcare or elder care providers and bringing them into some kind of digital end-to-end system like urban clap to link them to urban households. I mean, all of that is there, but until the woman is able to leave her children somewhere, is feeling safe enough to go get skilled, has the hemoglobin levels she needs to be able to do that. I mean, those are the sort of basics that we need to first think about.
We just touched upon the legal aspect, but the Seva also worked on the legal aspect of the, say, urban poor and everything. So can you just brief upon what are the laws?
So there are, speaking about laws, there are few legal spaces or laws for the informal sector workers. The ones they are for the construction workers, we have the Building and Other Construction Workers Welfare Board (BOC) in 1996 Act. And under that act, we have the state boards where a registered worker is entitled to social security benefits like maternity, scholarship for children, tools, pension. So there are challenges there, like we have at most of our schemes implementation, and also there are like the one thing that the government also and the trade union Seva is also lobbying with the government is portability for a migrant worker. For example, somebody who is from Ahmedabad comes and works in Delhi. So the registered number that she has will not work in Delhi. So she has to re-register and she does not have the required documents. So something which the government is also keen, and we as union, is that we can have a portability. The other thing is the Street Vendors Act. That is also Seva played a pivotal role in bringing that act into force. And under that act, the street vendors, they are given ID cards. We have TVCs, vending committees, which are functional at a lot of places, and somewhere they are struggling, but it is the ongoing process. And similarly, they get these vending certificates, which legally allows them to vend, and nobody can like to throw or pick them out of the street saying that you can't vend. So these are some of the legal frameworks. And also the other being e-shram. Everybody knows that during COVID, what migrant had to face, and it was bad for everybody, COVID, but we did see. And for the migrants, and how the government then came up with the first database for the unorganized sector workers. And it is expected, and the government also plans to provide social security to the registered unorganized workers. That has been a long-standing demand of Seva and other TUs. So this is something that we are looking forward to. And then also we have currently like Ayushman Bharat cards. That is something that Seva members have been using a lot. So these are some of the acts that I can talk about when speaking about informal sector. But it's like a constant lobbying that we do with the government, no, with our members, because a lot of informal sector trades like home-based workers, domestic, there are no acts or laws for them. So that is something that we are constantly asking the government, and we hope that this is something that will be in the near future, because a lot of women workers or workforce work in the home-based and domestic. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So we should have some law binding with them also. So going in the last 14 minutes, may I request the participant who is there, and if you have any question from the panel, you can ask. So I'm opening this session for the participants also.
Good morning, everyone. I'm RP Singh from Aga Khan Foundation. It's not a question, but what Shweta mentioned, I totally agree with it, because we worked in Patna, poor, urban poor, and what we realized that we trained some of the women and girls into the hospitality and retail. But retail business goes up to 9 or 10 o'clock in the night. And from there to returning any peri-urban areas in Patna, it's practically not possible for those girls. So then gradually they become a drop off from those trade. although they get employed in CCD and Domino's and other things, but somehow we can't ensure that safety part. So I think it's entire ecosystem also, especially when we talk about women and urban poor women. And second thing is the assurity of few things like basic amenities, like if a tap water is available in their home and they know that even if they return at 8 o'clock in the night and there will be a water in their home, so that increase a lot in their productivity in terms of time they have for doing all this skilling. Thank you. That's it.
Hi, this is Himanshu from BRAC International. So it was really good discussion. My question is, health is the least priority for any Indian, and when it's come to poor, it's the least, most of the least priority. In urban context, there are many exploitative livelihood options, and as Sakshi and Shweta said, that we have to prioritize how the laws and our awareness about the health is really important. So is the organizing the poor of urban is the only solution? And if yes, it's a really challenging, as we know, we are working in Patna and Gaya. So how to organize them and how to make them aware? Because livelihoods are there, but they are exploitative in urban spaces.
Regarding, we are talking about livelihood aspect in the rural area, but I feel there is a lot of things to do with the city planning. Are we ready? When we are talking about migration, and we are talking about livelihoods, but number of aspects are there related to, for example, their housing, in what conditions they are, kind of staying. I know Seva is working a lot. Another integrated aspect of housing, the drainage and the legality of these things. But another thing is that the Shweta ji also mentioned about education and hemoglobin, nutritious aspect. For example, construction industry is coming up in a big way, and we are building cities. We're taking to the mega cities and micro, what do you call? But construction workers are also facing a lot of challenge, because education is really a challenge. We are focusing a lot on the formal education, but construction workers, for example, in that case, they keep migrating from one side to other side, and there is a lot of challenge in educating their children. So I feel that along with livelihoods, and this is also related to livelihoods, the urban planning, is also very much related to vendors. She was talking about vendors. We have faced a lot of struggle at Seva, for kind of bringing a law or identity. But basically still because most of the people will not get their job in the wage employment. They have to go for the self employment also, service industries we are talking about. So are we ready? And we also have to think from that perspective, the city planning.
We respond? Or is there any other question? Ajit, you want us to respond to so far? Or? Yes.
Hello. Hey, hi, I'm Chitra from Indus Action, and we work on livelihoods. And I really like the point, especially on the interlinkages and interoperability. I remember in 2020, there was some buzz around Manrega paying 1% cess to the BOCW board, so that the Manrega card is accepted as a proof of employment for BOCW and enrollment can happen. Just wanted to get any, what has been the status of that proposal? I think it came from Rajasthan. And also, what are the challenges that have, if there have been any challenges with respect to that? Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I'll pass this on to you, Raman, the Manrega question, but I'll just quickly respond to the health and the urban settlement question. I think Himanshu's question on it points to the sort of limits of the livelihoods approach, because we work on the demand side, while all the infrastructure development, health services is on the supply side. So, how much can the demand side be organized so it influences the supply side? That's a sort of basic premise of this whole approach, and there are limits to that. On the question of city planning and urban settlement, Mona's question, I think was very well taken, that point. Especially you see it, you see the cracks in that in the heat waves. So, when construction workers, need to change their timings to be able to work during, heat episodes, or home-based workers. Sakshi mentioned that a majority of women do home-based work, but in cities like Ahmedabad, Surat, I mean, when it crosses 49, 50 degrees, you cannot even work in the house. So it reduces productive hours. And there are organizations like Mahila Housing Trust, working on, certain kind of roofing, low-cost roofing that can help bring down temperatures so that women can remain productive for those 4 hours. So yeah, the settlement approach, city planning, planning for climate episodes, monsoons is definitely part of livelihoods and should be.
So, just to continue what Shweta said about home-based workers, something very specific. They have painted the roofs white, so the temperature remains. A very specific example. And there are other ways also that we as SEBA are working for the heat, because we know the climate change is impacting, and especially the informal workers, they're very vulnerable to it. So this is something we are doing for the home base. We call it the Green Charlie project that we are working on. So how we can, at least their surroundings, their areas can be green, so the impact is less. Also, when we talk about OSH, occupational health and safety, for any trade like home-based workers, if I say about home-based workers, so like if she's weaving, so at times there are pain in the eyes or the backbone. So what we as SEVA has done, we have collaborated with the National Institute of Design, NID, and we have developed a workstation for them so that it's easy for them to work. The light is proper, the way they sit. So something as SEVA, what we are doing. And when speaking about, we believe it's very important to organize. Because when we say there are laws, like in the BOC, there is provision for occupational safety, the gears you are provided under those. But then one person going alone demanding and 10%, 100%, that's how the trade union works. So that is something we as SEVA also believe, that organizing is very important, because it gives you a good bargaining power. 100,000 people when go and ask for something, that is something. So we believe that organizing is very important. I think, yeah, speaking on the construction, the challenges for the formal education, that we agree, and we are also working with the government to see how we can make that, like I mentioned, no, the registration portable. So it's easy for the worker to access the benefits, because if you see the BOC, there are issues with that. It's not very smooth, right? But then otherwise, it's a very self-sustainable. You get the cess from the employer, and then it's put into the boards. And because there have been really very good cases where women workers were able to access even the pension, scholarship for their children. So these things. But so this is something. And speaking specifically about migrants, in Ahmedabad, we see there are a lot of migrants now. So we have been speaking with the labor officer there, and to get at least very basic education for the children of the migrants. So at least when they go back, or they can be formalized after a couple of years. So this is something what we are doing on construction. So thank you.
Manrega, as of now, there is nothing like that. What she was talking about, that 1% says, and it is recognized per se. But convergence between Manrega and livelihoods, that is going on, and that will come up in a very diligent manner soon. Though few indicators have already been included, the NRLM and the Manrega, they are converging well and trying to have some kind of proper livelihoods facilitation, that the asset comes from that side and the skills or the soft training part comes from the set of NRLM. With respect to organizing the poor, yes, of course, that is essentially required, but it has to be tailor made with attuned to the urban areas. I cannot say that the CLF model will work there, which I'll reiterate, it will not work in urban areas whatsoever, said and done. Of course, a smaller institution or a very larger institution can help out to some extent. And better part is that when we call the value chain management systems, I think the supply chain part can be well taken by the urban areas, which is essentially important also, and it will give a dual employment generation in the rural and urban areas together for the both needy persons over there.
Maybe on the organization side, I think just a couple of points. I think uh, I think we are in very comfortable in organizing, but we are not very sure why we are organizing sometimes. I think I need to put that kind of a caution. So just because we will get into urban areas, opportunities coming for us to do interventions and all, let's be very careful in getting into organizing without the what, why, where side very clearly defined in our mind. So that's just the caution I wants to put on the practitioners here, so that we just don't go and organize because we have successfully, unsuccessfully, I don't know, organized in rural areas. So that's the caution I want to put.
It's not cut, copy, paste. Yeah, thank you. So let's uh, just thank you, panelists, all the members for enriching. And so I have a clear set of framework. So poor is poor. That statement is itself is a bold statement in this framework. We cannot define poor, but we can characterize poor. So that's the say the first half which has gone to. The second important point from the discussion is skilling the urban poor, and it should be market oriented rather than scaling in terms of everything. So it should be market oriented. The third point is partnership with government. If you want to work with the government. It cannot be without government. The fourth is the opportunity which we spoke to. SLWM, next generation, climate, we talk upon. We talk upon the labor laws, we talk upon. So all these can go into the framework of urban poor, urban ecosystem, health, education, urban planning. So all these can go into the framework. So I'm really thankful to all the panel members to build this, and given Access Development for giving us the opportunity to put the things get together. Thank you so much.
I want to thank you, the moderator, and the panelists for this insightful discussion about exploring the complex needs of the urban poor, integrating interventions for climate and gender concerns, and innovative implementation and funding models. And now there is a little token of our gratitude to the panelists. I would also request after this if you could gather for a quick photograph. Yes, now can you just come a little ahead and we will take one group photograph. Thank you so much.